So today I'm doing a little 5x5 acrylic painting of echinacea or coneflowers. I don't know, I think there's a couple other names that people might call them, but they are flowers that I have grown in my front yard, and I took a few photos and took a few photos this morning and uploaded them onto my iPad. So this is an app called VizRef. I just put them on here. I found some composition that I liked between them. I think it was this one. And then I adapted some of the different flowers so that because some of these had kind of thinner petals than I wanted. So I took that composition approximately, but then imitated some of the petals of the others, drew that onto this little 5x5. Now this 5x5 it's actually a wooden birch panel, and I previously gessoed it, and then I toned it, or put a ground on of cadmium red medium. And then on top of that, I put some matte medium, just a thin layer of matte medium, and that allows me to draw on the little panel with a white charcoal pencil. And that just allows me to do my initial drawing. You don't need to do the toning or the ground, the red ground. You don't need to put the matte medium on, and you don't even need to pre-draw it. You can pre-draw using paint, or you can pre-draw using charcoal, whatever works for you. Or you can just go for it without doing a pre-draw. Now I'm using artist quality paints, so titanium white. I believe this is cadmium lemon, cadmium yellow medium, cadmium red. I have actually 3 reds. So cadmium red, this is quin magenta, this is quin red. I don't know if I'll use all 3 of them, but I have them out. I have phthalo blue green shade, ultramarine blue, and a touch of dioxazine purple. And then I have 3 brushes. They are 2 brights, and those are the main brushes that I will use, an 8 and a 6. You can use a flat, you can use a round if you want, whatever you want. I want a fairly large one for quite a bit of it because I want to paint very loosely with this. And then this bit smaller one for if I want to do a touch more detail, but I don't want to get too detailed with this. I want to be able to put my paint on, leave it nice and loose. And then I just have a little round number 2 for doing the signature, and that's it. Okay, so let's get into this. So I always start with whatever's in, I guess, the front of the painting, and I also start with the dark, so lots of purple. And I want to just basically get all our darks in, and just really quick. Remember, nothing has to be perfect, and with acrylics, you can always go over it again. And I always recommend starting with your largest brush. If you're trying to become looser with your painting, just go with a larger brush. Just go next size up that you've used before or that you're comfortable with. And that can really help to loosen up your paintings right away. Also hold your brush a little bit up. Sometimes I will, especially when I'm painting with on an easel, I'll hold it all the way out. But don't hold it too close to the base, because then that tightens up your paintings. So anywhere that's dark, or even somewhat dark on the petals, you can also do, so I haven't necessarily decided where the light is coming from. I kind of drew in kind of the line of where I want kind of some really loose greenery, and then this will be blue for sky. So maybe we'll have the light coming in from this direction, so I will add in the dark side of the little centers as well. I'm just going with purple because it's a very dark color just to begin with. And it'll look really nice once I start adding the lighter pinks and magentas. Okay, clean off my brush just a little bit. Let's get the rest of the petals really filled in. Again, we're gonna make sure we're going fairly dark. So I'll just magenta with just a touch of the purple. And just get more layers. You can move around. You don't have to stick with the same flower as you add your layers on. One challenge I always find with any of the quinacridones, so quinacridone magenta, is it's very transparent, so you have to do a lot of layers. Now, that's actually a good thing because adding various layers and using maybe a different mix of colors each time gives you really nice variability in the colors that you'll end up in your actual painting, and that can really make your whole painting pop. But it's kind of a pain sometimes because you have to do sometimes so many layers, and sometimes you just think, can't it be filled in? Can't it be done? But that's part of the magic of acrylics and the magic of quinacridones. And don't worry about being too perfect at this stage. You just want to get the shapes filled in. Okay, I still have some of this magenta on the brush, but I'm going to add a bit of yellow. Maybe add a bit of that purple. Make kind of this really reddish brown color. Let's add a bit more shape for this center part. Because the center part, you can have a really brown base, like the underneath of it becomes very brown. But the top part is generally kind of this orangey, reddish color. And you don't have to be exact with your colors. That's the wonder and the joy of being an artist. Okay, so that's good, I'd say, for the first layer of the petals and the center. Clean my brush off. Now let's toss in some of the green. So I want my stems to be pronounced. So I have a big stem here, medium one here, and then just a touch of stem here. I'm gonna do in a couple leaves, so I'm gonna do those right now. Because again, I'm going from foreground to background. So start with the petals, then the centers, then the leaves, then the background green, then the sky. And we'll go around, do it all over again, and then see how many layers we want to do. Okay, so to do a nice green, we'll take some ultramarine blue. Let's add a touch of the yellow medium, cadmium yellow medium, and you know what? I'm going to add a little bit of the lemon as well, just to try and brighten it up a little bit. This it's a Hansa, I believe, lemon yellow, so it's not the strongest, so you have to add a little bit extra to make it nice and bright, or give it a bit of brightness, and just add a little swipe of color. And again, don't worry too much about being perfect. You want people to know that it's a stem, but they don't need to know every detail about the stem. So just have confidence, and also know that when you're going from front to back, when you add the background layers, you can kind of trim some things if you find it's a little too wide, shaped a little bit funny. Okay, I want to add, kind of broke one of my rules when I was doing this. I want to add some of the darker areas, and I want it to be more of a very bluish green, but a dull blue green. So again, adding more ultramarine to this mix. And again, light is coming from this side. We want darker on this side. So this whole part of the stem would be darker here. This would be darker here. And this would be darker here. And that would be We're just giving it a bit of variety. Okay, so now I've done that. Let's add some of these leaves. Again, I'm gonna go kind of darker. Might be a little too blue, so let's add a bit of yellow, the yellow medium to it. You can also add, if you really wanna knock it back a little, add a little red. Red is opposite on the color wheel from green, so it brings it more browner or grayer. Okay. And this is the same red that I used, this cadmium red medium is the same as I used to do the ground on the background. So I'm just gonna add kind of a leafish shape. Don't be too precious with it. I have this bad habit of making all my leaves look exactly the same. Probably something I should practice and get better at, but to make them different and just try different shapes, but not today. I mean, I guess this is practice. Okay, so I'm just adding a few little boops in different places. Okay, I'm gonna clean my brush off because now I'm going to tackle the further in the background greens. So now for this, I really want to do more of a darkish blue-green. So I'm going to take a bit of the ultramarine, touch of the phthalo. Let's go with the yellow medium. Let's go with a bit more of the phthalo. More phthalo. Okay, so let's go with, I'm just going to add a touch of water on this because I want this to be not too heavy. Okay, so let's just, I'm holding my brush a little bit further back on this, and I'm just going to add just big swipes of color in various places. Don't forget to add in the spaces between the petals because you would see some of that poking through. Again, I'm still using the largest brush that I'm using for this project today. And this is an opportunity, you start adding little shapes or adjusting the shape of what you've already put down. And don't make sure that you're not covering all this red ground. We want some of that peeking through. Like I mentioned earlier, red is opposite on the color wheel from green. So because we have a lot of greens in this, that red is going to add really amazing contrast and really give some vibrant energy to this painting. And we're going to be adding more layers to this further back green background. So don't be too worried about kind of how weird it looks with some of these gaps. Every painting has a bit of an ugly stage, no matter how good of a painter you are. Okay, I'm adding a little bit of the lemon, cadmium, not cadmium lemon, Hansa lemon. Cadmium lemon will work pretty much the same. It'll be stronger when you mix than the Hansa lemon. Okay, now we're just going to add, again, just big swipes. Now try and remember where you actually painted leaves, because you want to try and leave those in. Not the end of the world if you obliterate some, but you might want just a little bit more variety in your painting. Okay, now let's do our first layer of the background, or the very furthest background, I guess we should call it. I want to do a nice aqua-ish sky, just because I like it. So I'm taking pure phthalo, starting to add some white because it's going to be somewhat light. It's not 100% what I want it to look like, so I'm just gonna add a bit of yellow and just a titch. Let's see if we can add just a titch of red. Because blue and orange are opposite on the color wheel. This is how you can kind of neutralize your blue. And I've added way too much now. But that's okay. I'll add a bit more phthalo back in. There'll be a lot of back and forth before you get it right. So it's nice, it's a very dark blue. So let's add some white, more white. Definitely not enough white yet. Okay, I'm gonna add a touch more phthalo. Okay, so I'm liking this more. And again, this isn't necessarily our only layer we're going to do on the sky, although it is definitely less important layer-wise than the flowers will be. Okay, so we're gonna do this just to fill in the what will be the sky. Again, don't fill in every spot. You want to leave a little bit of that red coming through, and also remember, doing future layers, you're going to cover over even more of the red. So, but also don't forget to do a little bit of a touch in behind the petals, because sky would show through here. Okay. Now, I have to decide, do I like the shape of the green? I want to get this a little bit further. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, now I would say that this is the first layer done. Now let's see how the second layer goes. I'm gonna let this dry just for a couple of minutes. I don't want to smear or kind of mix my next layers in with my first layer. So you can grab a hairdryer if you want, if you're not patient, which is probably what I'm gonna do, or you can let it dry for a few minutes. Okay, I grabbed my hairdryer. I dried it so that I'm not going to mix any of the original or mess up any of the original layers. So now we're gonna go over with some lights. So let's start again with the foreground. So grab a little magenta. Let's start adding a touch of white. I always start with a little bit. Gotta try it on the painting itself. See how you like it or not like it. You can always add a bit more. So remember, light's coming from this direction. So there will be some darks on that side, but not as much. And you add some lights on this side as well. You can kind of go around, do all the different flowers. You don't have to do just focus on one flower, then move to the next. You can adjust your mix as you go through. So you might want to adjust, that's a lot lighter. Let's add it here because we know it'll be super light there. And again, we're doing several layers. So even though I went a bit light there, that's okay. I'll add, go back and forth between a bit of darker, a bit of lighter, but generally trying to get a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter until I get to where I want to be. So again, I haven't used this Queen Red. I like Queen Red a lot because it's very pinky pink. So we'll add a little bit of that in as well. because the coneflowers that I grow are definitely more of a pink than a magenta, even though I've used a lot of magenta here. I just really love painting with magenta, so you have to forgive me. We get to choose what we really want to do color-wise for our paintings because we're artists, not photographers. And again, just all these different varieties of shades, values, all of that adds up to be a painting. We're not doing a single layer, especially with acrylics. We're not just doing one layer, one solid color, especially when you're trying to paint loosely. So I've gone quite pale here, so let's see how I like it. So because the light is coming from this side again, definitely have a lot of lighter petals. Don't forget the light will be coming over to this side too. But the center will block some of that light, so because this is dark here, these will be dark as well. So just keep that in mind as you're painting and adding some layers on. And just add a little boop of color and then walk away. Oh, I'm almost out of magenta. Let me just grab a bit more. Okay, back to the magenta, because as I said, one of my favorite colors. So I've gone a little bit darker again. It's okay. Just do a brush stroke, lay it down, move around a bit. You can add a bit of the magenta to the actual center as well. Because I'm not making or doing a painting that is photorealistic. Because like I said, we're artists, we're not photographers. Let's add a bit of the dioxazine purple and some white. A bit of a lilac-y color. So there's a lot of magenta in there because I haven't cleaned my brush. I'll just add a bit here and there. That's a nice color to add to the center. I wouldn't put it at the darkest part of the center, but this kind of transition area, you can add a little bit where it might, the light might be just starting to hit it, and it might give just a nice variety, a little energy to it. So again, go a little bit lighter, a touch more light. And just do a little brush stroke and then leave it. Do a brush stroke and then leave it. Now, I'm going to clean my brush. My memory card ran out, but I just replaced it, so hopefully you didn't miss anything important. Okay, I can't remember exactly what I was saying, but I'm going to continue with, let's see, some of the magenta, a lot of the white. So I want to do some of the most highlightiest highlights for the petals. So again, add a touch here. I don't think that was fully mixed in. It doesn't have to be, your mixes don't have to be 100% mixed in because that can help add looseness to your painting. But that was probably a bit less mixed than I wanted. Now we want the flower petals to be the center of attention in this painting, so we don't want it too dark compared to everywhere else. Okay, now let's add some more white. Actually, I'm just going to add a bit of yellow just to make it even warmer because sunlight is obviously warmer. Not just physically, but visually as well. So add a few boops on. Till I feel happy with it. Go a little kind of this medium color and add a bit more of the quin red as well, just for variety. Just want to make sure some of these aren't too dark. Again, you don't want to cover over all your dark layers as well. I want to leave some of that showing through because it gives depth to what you've done, or what you're painting. Okay, let's see, am I happy with that? Let's add a little bit more yellow. Just because I can. So one of the nice things about using either a bright or a flat is, yes, you have the full width, but you can just put it on its side and do just a variety of different brush shapes. And that helps add to the looseness of a painting as well. Okay, I'm gonna go lots of white. And then we will move on to the centers. Okay, now let's get these centers nice and kind of an orangey, bright color. So let's start with this yellow. It's the medium, cadmium medium yellow. Put a bit of the blue-green that I had done earlier on it, but that's okay. And then I'm just going to add a touch of the cadmium red medium. And that gives a good solid middle red. I'm going to add a bit more just because. And I'm going to add that. I just did a tiny bit there because I wasn't sure how it would look like compared to the rest of it, and I liked the value as well as the color so far. It's always good to just do a little, tap of your color before you really invest yourself in putting that color down. So we've done that. I'm gonna add a bit of yellow, a lot of yellow, and maybe a little bit of white. I'm gonna have to add bit more white to this palette pretty soon. Now again, sun is coming from this side, so we want this top to be nice and bright. So I'm just adding brush strokes, a bit of a different shape each time, so that they're not too exact. Okay, I'm going to clean this brush because there's too much paint on it. It's not perfectly clean. That's okay because I'm still working on these centers. I'm going to add just a touch of the dioxazine. And it's going to give you a really muddy brown color. And I'm going to add a bit more here because I want a bit more of a transition. A little less of the true purple. Let's go back, get a bit more of the purple. This is where the gloves come in handy. If you want to do a little bit of a smear. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush again. And I'm going to try and do kind of a middle color between, or a middle value. So a bit of that red into this lighter. I'm going to add, let's go with some of the Quin red. Quin red has purple in it. And purple is opposite on the color wheel from the yellow, so it can kind of mute down your mix a little bit. That can be really pleasing when you have a lot of color variety. Okay, so I think that helps to give that shape of this side is where the light is coming in. It's fairly light. I'm going to do a little bit more on this. And then you kind of have, as the light comes around that center of the echinacea, it's almost like a big gumball shape, I always think of it as. You get kind of that mix of the light and towards the dark, so you get kind of a reddish color. I threw in some of the purple and the magenta earlier. And then, of course, it's purpley brown on this side. Okay, I'm just going to take some of this pure-ish yellow and put it here. Has a bit of the green. Let's add a touch more of that red. Not very much, just to warm it up a bit more. Add a little white, maybe pull in a little bit more red. And we're just going to take the corner of this brush because I don't want too much. Oh, it's not really showing up. Okay, let's add a bit more white. Just do a bit of a highlight. There we go, that's better. Now let's do another layer of the stems and the initial leaves that you did, or we did. I'm going to take, again, a bit of both yellows. And I'm going to kind of have two spots for mixing because I'm going to do a little bit of the darker again. So I just added some ultramarine blue to both of those yellows. And again, light's coming from this side, so I'm going to do this side a bit darker. Again, just a confident swipe. That's great. I'm just going to add a bit of layer to these, or another layer to these leaves that are different than the kind of bluey leaves that I did. Now the thing about yellow is yellow's always very transparent. So it can take a lot of layers to get to where you want to be. But we'll try and do it in just a couple formal layers, and then of course multiple layers as you work on the stems. So I added a bit more blue because I wanted to see if I could make it a bit darker. Let's add a touch of red again. Might be too much. Blue. Let's add a bit of this lemon yellow. Just put it in. Again, put a brush stroke down and leave it. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush because I want to get the lighter green. So I'm going to take a bit of this yellow, not as much as I had kind of originally planned, but a bit more here. So let's just take a very tiny bit of the green that I had mixed earlier and add it to this. Let's see how this goes. Because again, yellows are so transparent. It can be really tricky. Just put it down. Don't put too much in some areas that wouldn't be getting as much light. But you want a bit to give it a bit of its shape. You can go back into this other green. Again, just add, because here wouldn't be quite as bright because it'd be blocked by the flower itself. And as you kind of go between the dark and the light, you can mix it together and just give a bit of variety to these leaves. Now let's add some white. What would be the palest areas or most light touched areas? So probably just here, maybe here, maybe here. Let's go a little bit further down here. Let's leave it at that. Just remember, we're painting a loose painting of echinacea here. We're not trying to be perfect. So let's get back into that phthalo. We want a nice blue-green for the background greenery. So right now it's quite dark. Add just a touch of red. Careful if you're using cadmium red because it can be very easy to overpower. Let's add a bit of white. Now, I don't want it to be too close to the blue of the sky, which also is a phthalo. So I'm going to add a bit more ultramarine, just a bit again. Then I'm going to add a bit more white again, because now we want to get a bit more variety in this what this background looks like. What? That's too blue. So too blue, and I added more blue. Let's add a bit more yellow. When you add yellow, it'll actually lighten the value as well. So just be aware of that as you paint. Okay, let's try this. It's not bad. So just kind of go over where you were before. Nice broad brush strokes. Don't cover everything. Just hold your brush a ways down. Help keep you loose. And just go for it. Takes a while, takes practice to get confidence. Not everything works out. I can definitely attest to that. Sometimes a painting comes together and sometimes it does not come together. Sometimes you think a painting's a disaster and somebody else loves it. So just be okay with what you're creating this time. Okay, I think that's not too bad. I've left lots of the red peeking out. Might even be a little too much. So depending if you think it's too much, you can add a bit more background. And remember, you can shape different things, different areas, your leaves, your stems, whatever you feel needs it. Add a bit more light or a bit more light, a bit more white, and a bit more of the lemon, pencil lemon yellow. Just put that in to get a bit more of a variety here. And I'm doing this more on the side that would catch more light right now, and less so on this bottom part. You can add a bit if you want. You don't want too much. Let's get some more yellow. Again, holding the brush quite far back. Keeps you nice and loose. It can take practice to do that, especially when you really start thinking. Sometimes it's like you realize that you're holding it like this and you're just being really, really particular. If you want to be have a loose painterly feel, it's good to practice and get used to painting with your hand far up the brush. Now let's just add a touch more white. And we'll just add it up here maybe. Now remember, try not to do too much of the same brush stroke. Like if I just went, the wide part of the brush over and over and over in the same direction, it would get a bit obvious. So do some this way, do some this way, turn this way. You can also do some where you start out flat and then you turn, just to give a bit of variety. You can kind of extend over the sky area as well so that you get different types of edges. So this is almost like a blended edge. We'll see how it turns out once I do another layer of the blue sky. But you have a harder edge with this dark. Just give some variety. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush off and we're going to move on to the sky. Okay. Let's get some of that phthalo and some white. Now phthalo is really strong and I put a lot of phthalo right here. Too much phthalo. So I kind of moved to another part of the palette to continue with my mixing. Okay. So again, that's too much blue. And I'm running out of white, so I'm just going to pop a little more titanium white onto here. In fact, sometimes it's a good idea to take your white and just add just a touch of the blue to it, because we want this to be nice and light. Okay. And this time I just did phthalo and white. Okay. Again, we want it nice and loose. I'm going to hold my brush way back. I'm just going to get some of this on. Again, different brush stroke shapes. Don't need to get all the way up to the edges everywhere. You want some of it. Kind of went over a bit of the petal there, more than I probably wanted, but that helps add to the looseness. Shape around. Don't have too much of the exact same width between, my cat has come to visit. Don't have too much of the same width kind of surrounding any part like the center here. If I had like a halo around it, I don't necessarily want that. So just make sure you're getting a nice variety of edges. You want some kind of lost edges, but not all lost edges. Oh, I think she wants some treats. She'll have to get some as soon as I'm done this painting. So I want another layer of this sky. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to do in between the petals here. Well, that'll happen when I do the next layer, I guess. So I'm adding a bit more light. Shh, kitten. So I'm adding a bit more light because skies aren't always a solid color. And leave some of that dark shining through. I don't want too large of areas that have the real dark. I'm gonna just add a little bit of this darker phthalo because I want to do in between the petals. I don't want it to be too light because when you have light coming through a smaller area, it tends to be darker than the brightest lights because the light will be filtered through. Or some of the light will be blocked by the petals. Okay, now let's get a bit more white. Just add a bit more. So again, different directions, different angles of the brush. And just add a bit of variety. Now, at this point, you might be done. But you might want to add maybe some, now that we have the value of the sky and all the different values in, you might want to adjust some of the areas. I'm going to add some light, very pale pink to some of these. I might add a little bit of another light value to some of the centers as well. So here we go, back into the pale pink. But we're very close, I'd say, with this painting. Okay, I'm gonna add there, there, there. Okay. And that really confirms some of the shape of some of these petals and which ones are over top as well. So again, I'm going to do a bit here, some down here, touch here, a bit there. I don't want it quite so strong. Oops. So you can add a bit, and if you have gloves on, you can wipe it off, but I don't recommend it if you don't have gloves on. Okay, I'll go a little bit darker with some of the pink just because I can. Again, just place it on. I'm gonna clean my brush. I'm okay with the petals. Okay, so I haven't used the smaller brush at all. I'm just gonna grab it and just do this last little bit. So you may have switched over to doing or using a smaller paintbrush at some point, but I hadn't, and I figured I should do a bit. So, just going to add a bit more here, just for some variety. Again, make sure you're not like completely covering over some of your previous layers. You definitely, oops, it's gotten very messy that way. Okay. Just kind of a grayed down, greenish, yellow, white. Just do a dab there. Do a bit there. There. Put a touch there, because why not? Yeah, because I have some green. Let's see what's still dry on my palette. Or what's still maybe a little wet on my palette. I'm just going to take that, like a light green, just add a touch. Light here, I want to soften that a bit there because it's a bit too squared off there. Just to give a bit more variety. Again, it's probably too much. So you can just, if you're wearing gloves, kind of give it a bit of a smear so it's still there. Sometimes I like doing that because it lets some of the color beneath show through as well. Okay, I'd say that's not bad at all. I'm going to just clean up my brush and call that done. Now I've taken my little signature brush and now I'm going to sign it. I'm going to take some of this over here. I always add quite a bit of water to make it nice and liquidy. I try and get this pointed as much as possible. This part's always scary. Make sure, I'm really bad at doing this, but make sure you leave a bit of a gap between your signature and the edge because it's a just a board or a panel, it'll need to be framed. So I just put my signature here. It's probably a little dark. I don't want it to be the focal point. It's such a tiny painting. Adding a touch of white. Make sure it's not too watery because it gets a bit leaky. But you want it to flow smooth enough. S's I find to be the hardest. So I just hope for the best. Okay. There we go. That is a nice little loose echinacea painting. And good luck. I hope you try and follow this. If you have some echinacea yourself or coneflowers, or maybe a photo online that you want to try and use as inspiration, go right ahead. They are fantastic flowers to paint. I paint them probably a handful of times a year because I just really, really love their shape and their color, and I love the really beautiful centers.